Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Well, yep. Welcome, everybody, to our Technical Advisory Committee. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from last time, July 27th meeting minutes. Does anybody have any questions on them before I ask for motion? Okay, seeing none, is there anybody that is willing to give a motion to approve them?
I move to approve. Emily
Okay,
Harris.
Emily Harris, thank you. Any second?
Second from Jeremy Nielsen.
Jeremy Nielsen, okay. Thank you. And we'll move to our second item, our Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP program business. Ben, I'll go ahead and let you have the floor.
Quick vote, Brittany.
Huh?
You want to take a quick vote on the minutes?
Oh, yes, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
any opposed? Okay, it passes. Thanks, Kip. Ben, now I'll turn the floor over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Chair. So today we have a board modification before the Technical Advisory Committee. This is PIN number 17806. This is a West Valley project. It's located on Parkway Boulevard or 2700 South and extends between Mountain View Corridor and 6400 West. So some of you may recall back when this project was reviewed, evaluated, and approved, and funding was recommended for this project. Project was initially identified or estimated to cost $5.7+ million. It was to take a narrow 2-lane facility and widen it to a 5-lane section with shoulder, curb gutter, and sidewalks, including the bike lane improvements. There was a recommendation from the Technical Advisory Committee back at the time and later approved by the Regional Council for $5.3 million. Since that time, as the city has been moving forward on this project, and shortly after completing a plan in hand, the project was identified to come in at $11.2 million. Just a little different from what was estimated and what was recommended. Some of the factors for this was the construction items and the right-of-way inflation factors were inadequate assumptions. The cost of labor, which is impacting a lot of projects, as well as the cost and the cost increase for equipment and materials to build the project. This resulted in a difference between the initial project concept report and the plan in hand to the amount of $1.2 million in right-of-way, $750,000 in design and construction engineering services, $2.2 million. The little clicker is not clicking. There we go. Thank you. $2.2 million in roadway and drainage items, $600,000 in mobilization cost, $400,000 in traffic control, and $600,000 in drainage pipe and structures. West Valley City has made a request to the Regional Council for some additional support in this particular project. So where it is in a summary format, a plan in hand estimate for this project is now $11.2 million. Currently, we have $5.3 million in federal funds programmed with a match for those federal funds at $384,000 plus, and some additional funds from West Valley City programmed, giving us a total of $5.7+ million. It is proposed by the city for them to identify other resources, taking $1 million out of their stormwater utility, some transportation sales tax money at just under $1 million, West Valley City's Class C road money at $750,000, Road impact fees on the city's part is $675,000. A request for an additional 1.9 million in SDP funds. And then the local match at 137,000 plus. That would give us a total of federal funds of $7.2 million in this project. And the West Valley cities contributing $4 million, giving us a total project estimated cost or available funds at $11.2 million. West Valley is present. Are there any questions in regards to this board modification? Brittany, I think we're ready then for an action.
Okay, is there anybody that is willing to make a motion to approve the requested $1.9 million in funding?
Brittany, this is John Miller from Mill Creek.
Okay,
I'm willing to make a motion that we increase by $1.9 million has been proposed of STP funds for the subject project.
okay, thank you, John. Do we have a second?
This is Ben White in Taylorsville. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Ben. And everyone in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, this motion carries to increase West Valley's funding by $1.9 million for STP funds. Ben, it looks like you still have items on the agenda, right?
Yes, thank you, Brittany. And thank you, committee. So for your information, so this recommendation then will go to TransCom, which will meet on November 3rd. Appreciate that. So the next item that we have to talk about, and hopefully all of you have a copy, either a physical copy or an electronic copy, and that is a copy of the letters of intent that have been submitted. The reason for us bringing this list before you is to make sure we haven't overlooked or missed any letter of intent that you intended for us to have. This is a list of all of the projects, so it will include Davis, Weber, and Box Elder counties for your information, so you're aware of the types of projects. Just a little formatting on the way the table is. We have the county, and this table is sorted by county, and then it is sorted by sponsor. The project name, project location, a brief project description of the project, and then the estimated project cost, the request of federal funds, and in the local match. And in the final column there is the requested funds that came out of the letters of intent. Now, as many of you are aware, when we get the letters of intent, we do a very high level cursory review of eligibility of the projects. And we may make recommendations for other funding or other programs that'll help your project be more successful or compete. It's very possible that some projects will be competing in multiple funding programs. But what will happen from this point, and this will bleed us right into the next bullet for me, is the process or the timing of where we are from here. So the letters of intent are due. They were due early October, but what we want you to do is look at that list, go down, find where your city is, make sure that we've got all the projects that you intended to submit. If we're missing something, let us know, because within the next week, by week's end, I should say, we will have a reviewed list. And the first of the week, we will send out to you a list of, actually how it'll come is an email, and then attached in that email will be a memo that'll describe the next step process. In that memo, there will be a link that'll lead you to a spreadsheet. In that spreadsheet, it'll look just like this, only it'll have multiple columns to it. And those columns will first let you know if it's eligible in that funding source. Then it'll highlight the funding source with the link. So all you need to do is go to that link, click on it, and it'll take you right to the programming page where the concept report form is, where the cost estimation form is, where the emission analysis form is, depending on the program and the type of project you're submitting. There may also be some recommendations from staff. If there's a project that perhaps is not included on the state functional classification map, there may be a note that says, yes, this project's eligible, pending functional classification update. That means that you need to initiate that process with our office, with Wayne Benyon, for that functional classification update. Wayne will then work with the Department of Transportation to go through that evaluation and update process. If a capacity type project is not included on the long range plan, we will make that note too, that yes, project may be eligible pending an update to the regional transportation plan. And that process will need to be initiated as well. But those notes will be in the table. If there's any questions, we would encourage you to please contact us, work with us through the process, make sure your concept report forms are complete, and then they will be due back in the early part of December. Are there any questions regarding the letters of intent or the process of where we are or where we're going?
I have a quick question, Ben. It's John Miller again, Mill Creek.
Thank you, John.
Did you state that you were sending this spreadsheet out or it had been sent out? I missed that. I can't seem to find it.
So the letters of intent list, Rosie, you want to?
The link has been dropped in the chat box.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And that'll be just of the letters of intent, John. And then Monday is when we'll send out the request for the concept reports spreadsheet.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Brittany, that's all I have then.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. And also for those that aren't aware, there's a link in the chat for the agenda as well, if you need to see a copy of that. And it sounds like Beckett is back as well. So I will turn the time over to Michael Goldman for item number 3 on the list. After which, Becca, would you like to take over the meeting as chair?
Thank you. Yeah, I can do that. Thanks for stepping in for me. I apologize for being late.
Sure. All right, go ahead, Michael.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thanks for letting me stop by and just give the annual update on kind of what we've been doing with the funding we've received. I'm Michael Goldman with UTA's rideshare department. And specifically the funds we've been getting are van pool funds. So I've shared year after year the same slide about what we do, but just wanted to point out one difference now is that our UTA team in the van pool department was 10 people, now it's 11. We added a position to help with our onboard technology. We're tracking the vehicle locations and driver behaviors, and we've seen a significant benefit to the program with that. So I'm just showing the expenses for the Salt Lake County. The qualified expenses that we have spent last year was $365,000. The funds we received, CMAQ funds from WFRC was $263,000. So the difference there is about $101,000. So the benefits that we've gotten from that in 2021, the vehicle miles traveled in Salt Lake were reduced by just over 5.3 million miles, which were the equivalent of just over 6,200 tons of reduced emissions. So it is down from our previous years before any COVID issues came up. But this year we've had, just this year alone so far, we've added 60 vans. And it looks like in the horizon, we have about 40 or 60 more vans to add to the program. So we're getting really close to pre-COVID numbers again. We attribute a lot of that to the gas prices and a little bit to some of the service issues we've had around the organization as well. So that's short and sweet. That's really all I had. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer that.
Hey, Michael, I got a quick question. On those numbers that you showed, were those, is that a total reduction for the total program or just a total reduction against the CMAQ program?
So you're talking about the reduced emissions?
Yes.
So that's a reduction in the emissions just for, it's for the Salt Lake area is 6.2 or 6,200 tons. So the total reduced program wide was about 25,600 tons. And so that's just based on the Salt Lake area for that 6,200.
Okay, to your whole rideshare program. Does that make sense?
Sorry.
In other words, Mike, are those benefits attributable only to CMAQ, or are they attributable to the entire expense of?
So that's the entire expense of the program. The funding that we get right now, unless we get to expansion bands, is just for administrative expense. And so we could possibly use some for bands. If we keep growing the way we do, we may look at getting some more expansion bands as well for the program to grow. We're not quite there yet. We were there right before COVID hit, and I was ready to submit for that, and then that obviously slowed us down a bit. But yeah, so as far as the CMAQ benefits, that's the overall program.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Wayne.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike? Thank you for that presentation. Next up, we have Tyler Lang with the ATMS annual report.
Right, get my screen going here. My screen showing up okay? Is everyone hearing me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. First of all, I apologize to everyone who was in Ogden Layton. Literally right before it was my turn to present, the statewide state of Utah network went down. It didn't recover until after the meeting was over. So anyway, it's working fine right now, but it's a little bit iffy on a few things. So if I black out, you'll know why. But hopefully we'll make it through okay on this one. So happy to be here, happy to give a report on everything that's going on in the traffic management division in terms of our intelligent transportation systems. I do have a small interactive slide later on in the presentation, and so if you'll indulge me and at least one of you interact with the question I have, I would be appreciative of that. So let's get going here. So a couple things that I want to go through, or a few things. Talking about our system growth, we've recently been analyzing our system, trying to determine, our budgets and things, and the system, the ITS system as a whole, is over 20 years old now. And so, we've been evaluating that, and a lot of our devices have either approached or are approaching end of life. And so I just wanted to go over that a little bit. Then I'll talk about various ITS projects in the Salt Lake area that have been completed over the last year, current or upcoming projects, and then some other efforts we're working on that may be of interest. So as I said, our system has been growing quite a bit. We actually initially started installing ITS in conjunction with the 2002 Olympics. And so this is a snapshot a little after that. Since 2010, we've been growing pretty steadily, adding our message signs, our cameras, our weather stations, and various other devices throughout the state. We've been growing at an average of about 8.6% per year. And so we're now getting to a point where we're really needing to look at, okay, some of these older devices have approached their end of life. We need to adjust our strategies and budgets to cover replacing those devices and getting newer technology out there. And that's something that's been a big focus for us over the last year or two in particular. Some notable projects that have been completed over the last year. UDOT is continuing to convert Bangerter Highway into a freeway. And so 3 major intersections were grade separated and completed over the last year. The picture you see is the interchange at 6200 South. And those projects include lots of ITS as well. And the intent there is to install technology with these projects that will help optimize the capacity and provide the tools necessary for our traffic operations center to manage incidents and keep Utah moving as our motto is. We're also making sure that we install future rent metering infrastructure with these projects. So we're not putting in full rent metering equipment with the projects per se, but we're preparing for the future when traffic volumes get to a point where rent metering is merited. So kind of future thinking there. Some other projects, we're continuing to expand our fiber optic network. Various corridors in the Salt Lake urban area. We've added fiber optic communications along the corridors you see here. We're also doing quite a bit of work on I-80 with ITS, and again, striving to optimize what we already have out there in terms of lane capacity using technology. So what you see here, I kind of mentioned in the beginning, are growing and expanding system and that it's starting to age. Hopefully you can see a difference here from our CCTV cameras, our old analog cameras, and the new digital cameras that we are now installing. You can see that the new digital cameras are a lot clearer. They allow us to view the traffic better and get a better sense of what's going on and determining details whenever there's incidents and things along those lines. One thing I will say about our camera network is we do not record video. We're not in the accident reconstruction business. We're more just in the business of helping resolve incidents and addressing things in the moment. So, some people have expressed concerns that, hey, you're recording me, you're, getting into my privacy and those types of things, but we do not do those things with our camera networks. The thing that these newer cameras allow us to do is, again, to help manage incidents better, to see details better. There's a lot more better technology and analytics that come with these newer cameras that allow us to, will allow us eventually to use them for incident detection rather than being reactive. They can come back and tell us that, hey, there's something not right going on here. So we're digging into that aspect of these newer digital cameras. Utah's growing, our population is growing, and we're just continuing to install new traffic signals. I didn't put roundabouts on here, but that's something that we've been doing more of throughout the state and considering more. But traffic signals are still our bread and butter, and what we install at most intersections, and that will continue as the state continues to grow. One big thing that we're very excited about is we recently procured a new central software. It's not installed yet in our traffic operations center, but we went through the RFP process and had a lot of really good systems presented to us and settled on this system from Southwest Research Institute. Our existing system, our TransSuite ATMS, again, was installed 15, 20 years ago and has reached its end of life. And we've just been band-aiding it over the last several years. And we're excited to get this new system that will give us more capabilities and be more stable for us. We're also going to we're in the process right now of upgrading the video wall within the TOC. If you go in the TOC right now, there is no video wall. Everything's been torn down, and we're going to be converting everything to LED monitors and again, have a lot more flexibility and capability there to show what's going on the roadways in our TOC. And when that's done, definitely invite anybody who's interested to come take a look at it. It's going to be pretty cool. Other things going on is we're continuing to install VMS. There was a time when we thought we wouldn't be installing any more of them, but we've realized that they're still very much needed and very useful. What you're seeing on the screen here is an actual picture of a full color VMS from the East Coast. And these are the types of VMS that we're installing in the state, and the new ATMS central system that we're installing will allow us to use that full color capability. We're continuing to upgrade our CCTV cameras, getting rid of the old analog ones and installing the new digital cameras, as I explained earlier. Another big project we're working on is enhancing the variable speed limit zone between Salt Lake and Park City. And so this is the interactive part. What do these numbers represent? Does anybody want to venture to guess?
The age I used to be.
Yes, we all used to be that young. Well, if there's no other guesses, these are unfortunate numbers, actually. I apologize to kind of turn things a little negative, but these numbers represent wrong way driver crashes that we've had year to date. And 8 are the number of wrong way driver related fatalities we've had. If you recall from my presentation last year, I talked about a pilot project we were doing to look at some technology that can help us at least detect wrong way driver crashes. We're doing a second pilot project with more robust systems that will not only detect wrong way drivers, but will also alert them and with warning systems. And so we experimented with or researched several products, and we ended up with these 2 that we wanted to test out and installed them at a couple different ramps at the Park Lane area up in Davis County. And we currently have the 2 systems installed, this TAPCO system, and they both work fairly similarly. Has an alert zone, and most people will correct after that initial alert zone. But if they go past it, then there's a confirmation zone, and that's typically when we know we have a big problem. On the right, you'll see the software interface for this particular system. That's a UDOT vehicle that was going through as part of the test. And it's been functioning okay. We've had some issues with the recent windstorm this past weekend. in the Farmington area. And so we're working through some of those bugs currently. This is the other system. Again, works very similar. It detects, warns, and then confirms if the vehicle goes beyond that initial detection zone. These are just some pictures of the TAPCO system that's installed at Park Lane and US 89 on the off ramp there. This is what the sign looks like at night. It's actually illuminated in the back in case for whatever reason the driver's headlights are not on, that they'll still be able to see that wrong way sign pretty clearly. This is the other system that's installed at Legacy Parkway and Park Lane. Again, you'll see various equipment there that's detecting and monitoring and warning. And then just the final thing here, some other low-hanging fruit modifications that we're making at intersections that are at freeway off-ramps. We're changing the signal heads to have straightforward arrows, enhancing and putting larger no right turn or no left turn signs, whatever the case may be, and just making sure that all the indications are very clear on the direction that traffic should be going. So those are some of the things we've been working on over the last year. Any questions on any of that?
Tyler?
Yes.
Has two questions, I guess. Do you have any data on the wrong way drivers, whether there was impairment involved? And number two, have you considered anything in other than the signs telling you what not to do? Have you considered maybe the landscape design, the masonry, or something that makes an entrance ramp distinct from an exit ramp?
Those are both great questions, Kip. We do have more detailed data on the wrong way driving incidents, and they're especially the ones that involve actual crashes. A very high number of those involve impaired drivers. And I don't have the exact numbers on that, but yeah, unfortunately, those, whenever there's a crash, it's more often than not due to some sort of impairment, and that's something that we're definitely looking at in ways that we can help mitigate that as best we can. To your other question, yes, we have been looking at ramp geometry and intersection geometry, and we have gone out and made modifications at certain areas where we've had high incidence of wrong way driving, and adjusted striping, adjusted curbs and islands and other things to make it more clear where traffic should be going and should not be going. We don't have necessarily a standard yet, as far as maybe that's what you were getting at, but we're looking at all things right now and doing what we can to mitigate this serious problem. Any other questions? All right, I think I'm done then. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Okay, moving on through the agenda, we have a Green Bike Annual Report, another information item. Ben Bolte.
Hi there. Let me pull this up. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Sounding good.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak with you today. My understanding is that we want to know what's going on with green bikes. So I'm here to provide that information. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm just getting over being sick and didn't want to risk it or risk anybody else's health. But what's great is over the last 10 years, this is the end of our 10th year of operations, 0 fatalities, less than 1% of our users have rated our maintenance as poor, less than 1% have rated the cleanliness as poor, and less than 1% have rated our customer service as poor, with the overwhelming majority of everyone rating it as good and then some fair. Now, we've been trying to decipher over the last few years with all the changes in the marketplace, what is Green Bike's role in the community? What is our purpose? How do we distinguish ourselves? And the things that keep coming up are these ideas of affordable, local, healthy, and nonprofit driven. And a piece of data that really sticks out to me is from Envision Utah. Now, this might be a few years old, but I think the data is still accurate. It's essentially something that's both shocking and obvious. It's the idea that a household in Utah, their second largest expense is transportation. Obviously, housing is number one, and we all see the articles about how Utah housing is getting so expensive, whether it's apartments, condos, or homes. And as a small nonprofit, we really can't control the marketplace for housing in any way, nor would we want to. But we would like to have more of a say in making transportation more affordable for the people in our community. And as you can see, for low-income families, that 36% of their budget going to a car, if we can convert even a chunk of that to going towards another expense or saving, I think we can do a really, really effective job at serving a purpose in the community. Now, this slide really illustrates to me the importance of having a nonprofit micromobility option in your community. And this is not a knock on any of the other options. It's just so important that we have as many options as possible. And Green Bike's goal is to get the maximum amount of daily behavior change, right? We don't want you to try it once or twice or to use it for recreational purposes. We want you to get rid of as many car trips as possible or eliminate your car trips, and preferably do it while connecting with transit. But as you can see, if you use one of the other options, you could be in $5,000 just to get to and from work over the course of a year. Now, those prices have continued to go up as markets often do, but Green Bike has never raised their annual price ever. Now it's between 1 penny to $75 a year, and you'll find out some very exciting information later on in this presentation. Now, our role in the marketplace and those priorities that we looked at has informed our COVID response. So we had more than 700 people sign up for our annual pass, which allows them to take as many 1-hour rides as they want for a year, and they only paid a penny. And our distinct role and priorities have guided us to spend more time on access-based initiatives. So our affordable housing partnerships with ArtSpace through their Solar Gardens, Rubber Company, Bridges Project, and other initiatives, ranging from 35 to 70% of area median income, as well as Give Communities and EcoBox, which can be up to 100% affordable housing. And Green Bike is providing completely free transportation through those partnerships. We also have an equity program where if you don't have $75, you can pay $5 if you use any of the disadvantaged services that Utah and Salt Lake City offer. And you can only pay it, or I'm sorry, you have the opportunity to pay it in cash if you want to, so the unbanked community can participate. We also do other initiatives to raise awareness about the importance of partnerships, something that we've learned from the Wasatch Front Regional Council. And as you can see, it's a really exciting idea. We get a bunch of local leaders, and for each one that rides, Green Bike buys 50 pieces of new winter clothing and donates them to the Homeless Youth Resource Center from the Volunteers of America. We also partner with Salt Lake City's HEART program, that's the Homeless Engagement and Response Team, through their Kayak Court program. And this is a great thing where there are all these encampments around the city, and oftentimes these individuals might have warrants out, and that prevents them from getting the social services that they need. So there are judges and attorneys that'll go around in these vans or what have you and get these things sorted so people can get the services that they need. But on the Jordan River Trail, that gets a little more complicated. So there are kayaks, and then Green Bike provides the bicycles so that people can get what they need. We also try and do fun free days where it could be supporting just civic engagement in general through completely nonpartisan, just get out there and vote, or promoting the LGBTQ community. We have an initiative where we let an individual nonprofit design their own bike. And every time that bike is ridden, we donate $1 to that organization. It's not a lot of money, but it does serve as a great promotional tool and an awareness mechanism for other nonprofits. We also donate basically just to anybody that asks, but approximately 30 to 40 different nonprofits every year for all of their different auction items. And as I said earlier, partnerships is definitely a Utah thing, particularly a Wasatch Regional Council thing. And some of the ones that have been really successful lately are through the LDS Church, where they are trying to get people from the front runner stop on North Temple to their office buildings along North Temple. And there's a bus that goes back and forth, but people want to get there as quick as they can. So through the sponsorships that we have with the church, they are putting stations at their big office towers and on their plaza. In exchange for that sponsorship, everybody that lives there, or I'm sorry, works there, gets that transportation for free. And it's been one of the most successful initiatives that we've done, and it's connecting with UTA. Vestar has been a great partner. UTA is always a great partner, and the Hive Pass program is still working fantastically. Every time somebody gets a new Hive Pass, there's a green bike RFID sticker on the back. Now they can use one card to get everything. But recently we've had a lot of success with private developers that want to have this as part of their new development so that they can provide this transportation. Very exciting stuff. On August 6th, we launched the Ogden system with 6 stations and 60 bikes. And there's the capital funding available to triple the size of the program over the next 1.5 to 2 years. We were lucky enough to win some awards recently. Utah Business Green Business Award, Salt Lake City Weekly's Best of Utah for Best Date Night. And then ironically, I was able to win the 40 under 40 leader through Utah Business this year. And so I decided to let somebody else be in charge. Honestly, we have some really big ticket ideas that we want to accomplish, multiple cities, the idea of maybe making the system free. How do we let people take out the bikes for longer at a time? And there's a level of political relationships that is above me, certainly. I can't text people at a certain level. And Stan Penfold has the experience, relationships, and expertise. And I lobbied him for quite some time, and 23 years running the Utah AIDS Foundation, a great statewide nonprofit. It's a really exciting opportunity to learn and grow the organization. He spent nearly 10 years on the Salt Lake City Council, a lot of years as chair, and sat right next to Carlton Christensen over at UTA during his time on the council. And then finally, we have capital for 150% expansion of Ogden, 50% expansion of the Salt Lake City system. We're going to be doing more e-bikes, hopefully more cities. There's going to be a significant expansion over the next 12 to 18 months, starting within the next few months, of the Salt Lake City service area, with a focus on West Side particularly, but also going farther north and Sugar House. But the focus is really going to be making these West Side connections. We're working on the idea of 12-hour rides and free rides so that people can really get the most flexibility out of the system, where you could take a bike that there's no station anywhere nearby. You can still lock it up, come back out. You're not worried that somebody else took it. You're not worried about trying to find a parking spot, and you still get that active transportation component. So that's everything that's going on with Green Bike. And thank you so much again for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Okay, any questions for Ben?
Hi, Ben, this is Shane with Salt Lake County. We have a bunch of those green bikes outside of the Salt Lake County building.
Yeah, best station.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I have never rented one though, because usually I want it for longer than the 1 hour time period or the 30-minute time period. So I see you've mentioned considering the 12-hour rides. Is there anything that you're considering between like a 1 hour ride and a 12-hour ride, like 2-3 hour rides, or is it just basically 1 hour or all day?
Well, what we're trying to do is figure out what's going to be the easiest. We've seen other systems across the country experiment with using almost a scooter type model where it's on a per minute basis. And so far, we haven't seen anybody come up with an idea that's really made an impact on what is going to change the behavior or even the revenue component. But the idea of just making it as simple as possible and not having to make a distinction of it's this much per 30 minutes, it's that much for 5 hours. Just in terms of a communication piece, if we just said, every time you check out a bike, you can keep it for 12 hours if you want to. Return it to a station anytime. The idea is that you could take it home if you had to. It wouldn't cost you any extra. The idea is if we could figure out how to make this as convenient as humanly possible. But at the end of the day, this decision won't be up to me. So I think it'll definitely go through a few more iterations of options. So it's very possible.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I just wanted to compliment you on the presentation showing really the community connection that Green Bike offers. And so I thought that that really shone through in your presentation.
Oh, thanks, Becca.
Okay, and anyone else? Okay, thank you, Ben. And with that, we'll move on to another informational presentation from Salt Lake City. I think one of my colleagues is here to give a presentation about municipal participation in transit to benefit city goals. Do we have either Julianne or Laura? Oh. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Laura McClellan. I'm with Salt Lake City Transportation Division. I'm excited to be here to talk about some of the investments that we've made. It's really exciting for us. It's something that we're really proud of, and we think it's something that serves our residents really well. So hopefully we can show how municipal participation in transit service benefits city goals. So starting with the adoption of our transit master plan, which was back in 2017, one of the main goals was to implement a frequent transit network to provide reliable, efficient, and frequent transit service that takes advantage of Salt Lake City's grid street network. So shifting away from that sort of hub and spoke service pattern that we'd served the city through in the past, that UTA had served the city through in the past. Initial priorities of this plan were to enhance evening service on key routes within the city, making transit more usable for both work and non-work trips, and also to implement frequent service on multiple of our main east-west corridors. So then once we were authorized by the legislature to pass a half-penny sales tax, had the countywide quarter penny sales tax authorized, and when the legislature carved out from the Transportation Investment Fund and allowed for transit and active transportation projects, we were able to begin working with UTA to sponsor additional service on existing UTA routes in order to meet our FTN standards. And those for us are running service from 4 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday, and then we have 15-minute frequencies from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. To meet the goals of our transit master plan, our first 3 sponsored FTN routes were east-west running. And on this map, it is Route 2, Route 9, and Route 21. Those were the first 3 that were implemented in August 2019. And they were all, you can see that they're also entirely within Salt Lake City boundaries, so that made it a little simpler logistically, and meeting a need of our residents that wasn't there before. So we immediately saw really big jumps in ridership and heard extremely positive comments from our residents about how much better these routes were serving them and how many new things they were able to use the frequent transit network to access, how much more freedom the service provided them in their daily lives. This graph is probably a little bit easier for folks online to see, but the first vertical line there indicates when the FTN service went into effect on those 3 initial routes. So you can see the immediate jump on all 3 of those. Unfortunately, like I said, that was August 2019. So we only got about a good 6 months in before COVID hit and UTA service cuts went into effect. And that is the second vertical line there. So again, just a corresponding decrease right back down. And then in August 2020, UTA re-upped the frequent service on those routes. And that's where we started to see an increase again, obviously not back to pre-pandemic levels, but still just an increase in ridership when there's an increase in service. And what we were able to observe prior to COVID was that there were the biggest increases in service where there were the biggest increases in frequency. The Route 9 in particular saw the most ridership gains because it did have the most frequency gains. And on another hand, an increase in span of service, so just starting earlier, ending later, it doesn't necessarily result in huge ridership increases, but it really does make a difference for riders who may work atypical job schedules, still need frequent and reliable transit outside of the typical 9 to 5. So that was something that was really important for us to facilitate as a city for our residents and for our workforce. So additionally, we've worked to combine this approach of increasing service on fixed routes with additional programs like on-demand service in lower density residential areas. We have a Salt Lake City subsidized transit pass program for our residents. That was the Hive Pass program that Ben just mentioned in his presentation. Low income pass funding, and also funding passes for all Salt Lake City School District students and staff, which went into effect very recently. And we were really excited about that. So outside of service buy-ups and these pass programs, we've also invested our dollars into capital projects such as bus stop improvements, transit corridor design, and mobility hub creation. So really the take-home message from all of this is that Salt Lake City has worked for years very closely with UTA to get to the point where we have all of these great programs and this great frequent service available to our residents, to Salt Lake City visitors, and to the workforce. You know, it's something that, again, we're very proud of, and we receive feedback from our residents that it's service that really increases flexibility and freedom in their own lives. And, you know, we would certainly encourage and hope other municipalities to foster the same relationship with UTA and identify the elements of transit that are within your control, because it's not just in UTA's hands. And it has really helped us be able to deliver on those improvements and wins that residents want to see, and really all the benefits for the entire region that increased transit ridership and uptake can afford. So thanks. If there are any questions, I'm planning to direct those to my colleague Julianne, who is also here.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, thanks for answering all of our questions. We'll move along to the next information item. And that is Kip Billings has a presentation or information on Safe Streets for All, which is another federal grant program.
Yes, I wanted to give you a progress report of where we are with that program. You're hearing me all right and seeing the slides?
Yes.
Okay. So just to refresh your minds a little bit, this Safe Streets for All, SS4A, is a new program, part of the Investment in Infrastructure and Jobs Act. It allocates $1 billion nationwide for each of the next fiscal years, 22 through 26. This is a new program, so a lot of first-time experience with how this works. one of the requirements to qualify for these funds is that safety projects need to be part of a comprehensive regional safety action plan, or often referred to as just the action plan. So a number of counties and cities in the region approached Wasatch Front to request that we lead this multi-jurisdictional safety action plan effort. And so that's how we got involved with this. The SS4A funds are intended for local governments, cities and counties, other government agencies such as the Transit Authority also qualify. The funds, however, are for roadway safety improvements. So Wasatch Front embarked on this action plan effort. In this past September, we submitted a request for funds to do an action plan. That action plan will address safety needs for the counties and cities within Southern Box Elder, Davis County, Morgan, Salt Lake, Tooele, and Weber counties. We anticipate the awards will be announced in January of 23. The awards are based on although it's not a formula for each state, the criteria they're using for the awards are the number of fatal crashes from 2016 to 2020, and then the fatal crash rate as a function of population. Then there's another factor that they're using, and that's the percent of the population in the study area that is considered disadvantaged. This is using the Justice 40 Act that from the Biden administration that they came out with in January, I believe it was. So the data is already there. It's just a matter of extracting the data for your particular community, or in this case, the 6-county area. Nationwide, that percent of disadvantaged population, according to how they calculate that, is 32%. In our application, the percentage was 22%. So I don't know what that does to our award, the amount, or our chances of receiving one. I fully anticipate we will get the award we requested to do this study. Just a little bit about that, the disadvantaged population or disadvantaged community, sometimes called DAC. There's 6 factors that are considered, and those 6 are based on 22 more detailed factors, things such as transportation access, health impacts, the environment, particularly air quality, and economic status, resilience, which is a measure of climate change, and then equity, which they're using English as a second language as a measure for equity. So this is kind of new, and how they're appropriating these funds. Right now, the action plan, as I mentioned, we've submitted the request for the grant. We're currently developing the RFP documents. We hope to have that all ready, so when the grant is announced in January, we're ready to go out to bids shortly thereafter. And we expect the action plan will take about 15 months to complete. For the cities and counties, at this meeting, maybe you want to put on your calendars that in the spring of 2004 is when the action plan should be ready. And so that's about the time you'd want to be considering implementation grants for your particular area. Show one other slide. This is just kind of a calendar view of those points I just reviewed. And I wanted to, we're right here where this red arrow is. We just submitted the action plan request. This area highlighted in red, the grant agreement is kind of an indefinite period. The Federal Highways has allowed 12 months to reach those grant agreements. Hopefully it doesn't take nearly that long. We want to get going as soon as possible. So that's kind of a summary of where we are to date with the Safe Streets for All. Back to you, Becca.
Okay, thanks, Kip. Any questions? I guess one question that I had is what happens if we don't get the grant?
Without an action plan, I don't know that you can do implementation grants, but I think it's one, highly unlikely that they can spend all of that $1 billion on action plans and exclude Salt Lake. We expect to get some kind of grant. These are programs they want to see implemented to improve safety. This is kind of unique to, I didn't mention that these funds are not eligible for state projects. It's a funding resource for cities and counties with a lot of emphasis being put on safety improvements. In the past, there hasn't been a resource for implementing those. So I think there's a lot of incentive to get those funds out to the local communities and make those safety improvements.
Yeah, and there would probably be another round as well.
Yes.
So. Okay, any other questions for Kip? Okay, I have a question, which is, are there any 4-leaf clovers? You're muted.
Those are from the redwood forest. I'm not even sure what they are. I guess they're shamrocks of some kind, but I haven't searched.
Okay, I haven't spotted any. Okay, then moving along, Ben has recommended schedule for our consideration and adoption. At least I guess that's why
Madam
we have
Chair.
it listed as an action item, right?
Yes, and actually it's not really an action item. It is more of the information. We want the input though from the Technical Advisory Committee. And maybe to initiate, we want to thank the Technical Advisory Committees, all of you that are here today and all who continue to participate. Your participation is critical to the process. We're grateful for the time that we have with you, for the things that we learn together. So this list identifies the meetings that are scheduled for this next coming year, 2023. We have next to the date a suggested or recommended manner in which we would meet. So like on January 25th, we would recommend a hybrid meeting. We've identified some of the potential agenda items for that project. On February 22nd, when we have our roadshow, would be a hybrid type meeting. In March on the 29th, we would recommend an in-person meeting. This is the meeting where we review and make the recommendations for the projects that would go into the next cycle here, that your recommendations then go to TransCom. In April, there's no meeting. May 31st would be a hybrid meeting. June and July, there's no meeting. Our end of summer meeting would be then in August 2nd. That's when we'd come before the TAC committee with any comments or input that was received during the public review and comment on the draft tip. And then in September, no meeting. And then that brings us to October, where it would be a hybrid meeting similar to today, only a year from now. But probably the most important part of this part is on the backside or the next page. This is the review of the refreshments and presentation schedule. So there in the Salt Lake West Valley urban area, South Jordan would have our first meeting in January. And where we would have an opportunity there, if we are in person or hybrid, South Jordan would be responsible for bringing the refreshments, as well as doing a project or a city presentation of things that are happening in South Jordan and in South Salt Lake, Taylorsville, and on through. So that is the proposal for our schedule for 2023. Are there any questions, recommendations, or concerns?
Hey, Ben, this is Keith. The January 25th meeting, that's also the Utah City Engineers Association conference in St. George that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Well, that's good to know, Keith. All right. So is anyone aware of a meeting in the Wednesday prior to the 25th?
Could you go back, whoever is doing the screen, could you go back to the meeting schedule? Thank you.
So the 25th, we've got a potential conflict.
What month was that, Ben?
January 25th.
So that would take it back to the 18th, which is the week of Martin Luther King Day.
Okay, does anybody see a conflict there on that Wednesday?
There's a ULCT board meeting. I'm not sure if anyone is involved or a member of ULCT.
Thank you, Rosie.
ULCT board.
That would probably impact elected officials more, I think, so.
Okay,
The 11th seems clear.
the 11th is
Yes.
clear. Okay. If it's all right with you, let us look into seeing how many that might impact on the 18th. And if it is, mayors, we apologize there if that would leave you out on the 18th, but we'll look at the 18th. What this does is, so in that January meeting, what the big deal on that is we'll bring to you the letters of the concept report, the projects we're evaluating. We go into much more detail in February, but if we move too early into the early part of the month, doesn't give us the wiggle room or the working time to be able to put the information together. But it is possible we could go to the 11th as well. Is that all right if we look at that and then send that out to the committee? Thanks for bringing that up, Keith. Any other conflicts or concerns?
I'm looking at school calendars and seeing that the 18th of October is adjacent to the UEA days. I think that might be the case for our meeting today as well. So maybe that's okay. But I know
that was last week.
it was last week.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like I'm looking at Canyon's calendar right now, and it's showing that the 19th and 20th are the UEA days. I know that
Canyons is this
past,
week.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Canyons is this week. Many others were last week.
Ah,
Yeah, it's not called UEA anymore. It's just fall break, and different districts have different days. So October's kind of hit and miss.
I see. All right, so how about if we meet instead in November on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving? How's that strike people?
Depends on who's bringing refreshments.
And everyone brings a side dish.
I'm not sure we need to schedule around school calendars. There's conflicts with spring break as well for some school districts.
Okay.
Unless people think they'll be out of town for those times.
And also the fall break, the fall break is Thursday and Friday, and our meeting is on Wednesday.
Mhm.
And it depends on the school district. Some districts have it all week. But I think October 18th is better than the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
That was a joke, people.
Okay, that's all I would have, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you. And then with that, we're going to move on to the big item on the agenda, at least from my perspective, which is the election of the vice chair. And so Brittany, who has been serving as vice chair and pressed into service even today, will be stepping up to be chair. And that means that we need to elect a new vice chair. And so it says vote on vice chair, but I think the very first thing we need is we need some nominations. Do we have any nominations for someone to be the vice chair and then step up to be chair the year following?
Hey, Becca, Kip has his hand raised.
Okay. I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, sorry. Couldn't find a graceful way to interrupt. I think the calendar was listed as an action item. It was this morning, so I don't know if you wanted a vote, if you want to go back to that after vice chair, or if it actually doesn't need a vote.
Ben told me he didn't need a vote just before, as I asked about that as we were going up, but what do you need,
Okay.
Ben?
No, and you're correct, Becca, and thanks, Kip. It was a mistake that we made earlier, and I didn't have time to change it on the agenda where it had gone out. It did not need to be an action item, just an input. But good catch.
Okay, so we return to the idea that we might have a nomination for a vice chair.
Well, I can't do both.
Brittany, you might want to nominate someone, or you'll be stuck there.
Or I might be able to help you out. And I apologize, I'm fairly new to this committee, so I may not know the history of all of these things in terms of who has served and who has not served. But if it's not too impolite to nominate one of my colleagues, I would nominate Chris Norlam.
Thanks, Becca. This is Wayne Benyon. There was a nomination in the chat that would spread things around a bit.
For those who are here in person, the chat says it's from John Miller, and he said Ben White would be great.
I'm great with Ben. Is Ben here that he would like to speak for himself?
I think he left early, so it's just an opportunity that'll be his.
Okay, can we put him in without talking to him
We have
first?
2 nominations, though.
Okay, we do have 2 nominations, I guess. So are there any other nominations? I guess I get to run the meetings that are contentious.
Becca,
Our March meeting. Yes,
Becca, was Chris here to speak for himself as well?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I am here. Yeah. I'd be okay with anybody else stepping up. Would be Salt Lake City again.
Do these nominations need a second or an acceptance?
This is Jared with Holiday. I'd be happy to second Ben White.
Okay, and I leave it to the WFRC staff to determine if you have a need to contact Ben or if he gets conscripted in his absence.
We can do both. With love and encouragement, we'll take care of that.
Any other nominations? Okay, so I think that means that there's been a nomination for Ben. It sounds like we don't have a second for Chris. And so we'll proceed on a vote for Ben.
Becca,
Yes.
since I kind of nominated Ben, could I change that nomination to Ben? And if he can't do it, have Chris standing in the wings to accept the nomination?
I suppose that's an option. I'm not really, I apologize, I'm not really up on Robert's rules as far as like nominations and elections go, because I've only worked actually with an alternative process. So someone's going to have to guide me a little here.
I think whatever you choose to do is probably going to be acceptable in this case. You are working with engineers.
Aspiring politicians, everyone, right?
Becca,
Yeah,
maybe we
the
make a
committee-
motion to put Ben in this time, and then after he gets a chance to have a say, if he can't do it, the next meeting, we make another motion to switch it to Chris. If Ben can't do it.
Wonderful recommendation, Brittany. I like that.
Ben, I look to you for some advice here.
I think that was good counsel from Brittany.
All right. She's second in charge and soon to be in charge, so we'll go for it. Okay, so I'd like to have a vote then. All in favor of proceeding with Ben and provided that he accepts it, say aye. And if we need to go to a second step, we'll have Chris a subsequent election at the next meeting.
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Becca, there was a question there if we needed to default to the voting members only. I think all of the technical committee could be a participant in the vote, just so someone isn't left out.
I don't think we need to have a voice vote on that one. I mean, a roll call vote. Didn't seem to be close. There's no contention. Ben was not here to vote against it. Okay, and any other business? I don't have any. Does anyone else have any other business? Okay, and do we have a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Seconded.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Becca.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Becca. I appreciate your sense of humor there and made me chuckle.
Got one. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.